I'm very honored and thankful to be joined by Robin Dreeke, who's the former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavior Analysis Program with the FBI, executive coach, and best-selling author of books such as The Code of Trust, It's Not All About Me, and Sizing People Up. He's also the founder of the podcast that's making an impact in a range of people's lives, and definitely with my own, the Forged by Trust podcast. And so I'm very thankful to have him on the show. My friend, Robin Dreeke. Thanks very much.
And thanks for saying that, Scott, because you almost left that out. The most important thing out of everything is the close friendship, because relationships are the bedrock of everything in life. And congratulations on the podcast. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I think, and from some of our early discussions, I mean, a lot of our discussions have been based around obviously trust and rapport building. And I think that at my very core about the focus on keeping people safe and well, there's a lot of tie on and crossover there. And so I'm very keen for us to delve into that. Where I'd like to start off, if possible, is just about, I suppose, your origin story, what sort of got you to the person that you are now, and your focus. I've said openly, like to you and to others, you're somebody that emanates trust in every fiber of your being. For anybody who's been fortunate enough to hear one of your presentations or read one of your books, that's the way that you come across, and it's like it appears to be like a natural part, but I'm sure that there's been a journey there. So I'm very keen to, for us to be able to share your journey, what's got you to where you are today.
What a very kind, beautiful statement that really hit me at my core. Thank you. I really appreciate that, because I don't feel like I was the person that grew up being that way. I think it was a core of who I wanted to be, but as many of us experienced, and this is a universal I've seen with so many people, if not all of them, we all experience trauma and challenges when we're growing up. And we also experience things that kind of forged a path of where we're going to be later in life, because the things that gave us those great comforts in those times of stress and trauma are the kind of things that we gravitate to later in life. Now, granted, they might not manifest exactly the same, but the core essence is there. So my origin story is really simple, and that is I started out with a family full of great abuse and dysfunction, as many of us do, and I'm an only child, and with the name Robin, blonde hair, blue eyes, I was bullied, and so that impacted me. And here's how my first formative years that it impacted was really, really simple, and that is I wanted to be liked. And my grandmother, who would watch me on weekends from the earliest memories of like 3 and 4 years old, she would play school with me. So I wanted to go to school so bad so I could make friends. Yeah. And so she would play school with me, and I got to be the teacher. And so, yes, I wanted to be liked and I wanted to teach. There's the origin there. That's the really basic origin story right there. And now we go through life's trials and tribulations. Along the way, I wanted to become an astronaut, and my greatest funny story is I failed at trying to be an astronaut because you don't let someone who was struggling to do well on a standardized test to get into the United States Naval Academy, major in aerospace engineering, because I quickly failed out of that, major in political science instead, and everything kind of went sideways. But the core of wanting to lead, wanted to be liked, and wanted to teach, educate, and inspire others was always there. And
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah, you bet. I could monologue too long.
No, because there's the way that in Scott speak here for some of this, I can't imagine Gordon Ramsay doing anything other than in the cooking area. I can't imagine Fred Astaire with his, and obviously everything that he did with the entertainment. Everything about you to me is people-centric. And so when you mentioned as well about, like you're saying, and for being an astronaut, with knowing what I know of you and for our dealings and everything about interaction and people-centric and other people-centric, which we'll get to, wanting to be an astronaut, aside from the element of wanting to be liked, was something that I know stuck out for me because it just didn't seem, it's a rather semi-solitary type career. So I'd love to hear what the driving force was behind that. You may have answered this before, but for me, I'm very, very curious about that.
Thanks. It's really funny. It started with wanting to be a Navy pilot. And this is actually before Top Gun, the original Top Gun came out, is what I'm kind of dating my age here. But we had a friend of our family that was a Navy pilot. By the time we knew him, he was a United Airlines pilot. And he had the coolest house. I came from not much money at all. Neither of my parents had a college education, but they had great friends. And this one friend was a United Airlines pilot. He had been a pilot during the Vietnam War off the Oriskany. And his I Love Me room at his house was really, really cool. So I wanted to become a pilot. The only way I was going to move forward in life was go to the United States Naval Academy because it was free. Ronald Reagan was the president when I was in middle school and then early high school. So he was all about inspiration and service to country. And so those things coalesced into that. And then I've always been fascinated with space and exploration. And so astronaut was the progression from there. And so the funny tidbit about me is I am actually a commercially rated instrument pilot. And I did angel flights for a number of years, not too long ago here in the States, which is, volunteering my time and money to bring patients to cancer treatments and things like that in a plane I rented. And so, yeah, I have technical skills. I can fly and fly pretty dang well, but it's a thing no one knows much about when it comes to me.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So I'm sorry for interrupting. Please continue. So post then on your journey. That'd be great.
No, and it's a blend of the two. It's the balance of the dichotomy, and so I got to get that out of my system. And the greatest thing with the flying and everything to do is imparting that love and passion with my son, who's a Marine Corps aviator, going through flight school right now. So failed out of aerospace engineering at the Naval Academy, and decided I really didn't like the being on boats because I just wanted to go Marine Corps. My temperament was suited for it. And when I got in the Marine Corps, I really thought I was this natural born leader. And here's we all have great aha moments that are humbling in our lives. Mine was really simple. When I was growing up, when you grow up with not much, and I know people can identify with this, you become self-reliant, resilient, resourceful, and entrepreneur. And so it was always me, me, me. I need to provide for me to feel safe, the theme of your show, which is feeling safe and secure. And I got really good at that, like most of us do when we're going through challenging events in life. And being a gregarious, outgoing guy, I was popular. So I equated popularity and resiliency with leadership. I thought I was a natural born leader because people naturally born like me, because I was funny to be around, gregarious and outgoing. But what I didn't realize, though, was that what that was looking like to the outside was, look at me. Look at me, look at me. And I get in the Marine Corps in my first evaluation as a new second lieutenant out of all the other lieutenants in my squadron. I was ranked dead last, 14 out of 14. And it was a humbling moment because I thought I was a great natural born leader. And I go to my major, the rating officer, and I go, all right, sir, I get it. I'm doing something wrong. And that's the only thing I really had going for me, I think. There's probably other things, but we're always harshest on ourselves. And that was that I owned it. And I said to him, what am I doing wrong? And he said, well, that's easy. You just need to be a better leader. I was like, all right, how do you be a better leader? And he goes, well, that's easy too. You need to make it about everyone else but yourself. And again, when you have a lifetime of repetitions, of reps, I call them, of self-reliance, resiliency, gregarious, outgoing, I had no idea what he's talking about. I didn't consider myself egocentric. I didn't consider myself, look at me. But that's what the behavior was because of those learned behaviors early on. And so he laid down that gauntlet of trying to figure out, how do you reverse that optic? How do you shift that focus? And as I say, I got my 4 keys of communication. I'll lay them down really quick right now. We can go into more if you want. So shifting that focus from yourself to others, like I didn't know back then, which he couldn't articulate because very few people can. But this is it. Number 1, seek the thoughts and opinions of others instead of sharing your own. 2, speak in terms of their priorities, challenges, and pain points instead of your own. 3, which is the biggest anchor of them all, non-judgmental validation. Be curious without agenda of everyone you encounter. And 4, empower people with choices. When you do one of those 4 things in everything you say and every communication you have and in every interaction you have, and you embody that internally, the entire shift goes from you to others. And that makes them feel valued, it makes them feel worthy, and it makes them feel safe.
And I completely agree more with what you just said about the focus being other people centric and how important that is. But that must have been a big fundamental change from somebody having that me, and then getting told, here's the actual pathway to leadership about making it about like other people as well. There's going to be an initial what do they say, ask gap, attitude, skill, and knowledge gap there for getting filled. And so, what sort of path did you take for learning to have that focus? I mean, is it something between looking for mentors, looking at what sort of literature, what sort of helped you progress along that pathway to being truly other people centered?
All of what you said, whether I wasn't really super conscious of what I was doing at different times, but the one thing I think that's been really consistent in my life that I've been able to do is reflection. I reflect a lot. I have always been very reflective after every encounter I have. I think about the conversation. I think about the dialogue, and I say, what could I have done better to make them feel better when they can talk to me? And along that path, yes, I started reading much more when I was in the FBI. I went to undercover certification school, and probably this is where a big aha happened. I'd been through training, interview training, counterintelligence training, and all recruitment training, all the hooky spooky spy stuff for the FBI, and all these leadership schools and training, which you're learning, as you and I have chatted before about, you're learning how to paint by number. Interpersonal communication skills is an art form. And in order to start doing it well, you have to learn how to paint by number first, which is all these schools, all the training is learning how to paint by number. So you can literally embody the art of the other person. And so when I went through this undercover certification school is when this next major milestone happened to me. And that was, we got a senior agent up in front of us. It was like a 2-week long school, really, really psychologically intensive. And we're used to sitting in classes all day long, learning more muscle memory of the art form of painting by number, of rapport building, all these things. And this guy stood up there really simply. I think he had a 2-hour block, but he took 15 minutes. And he held up a book, and the book was Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it was his copy. He held it up. He leafed through it, showed us how he took notes in the margins, showed us the stickies he had on it. My original copy from 2001 when I went through the school sits right over there next to me. And he said, welcome to the world of self-education and self-mastery. The coin of phrase by my good friend Joe Navarro in his book, Be Exceptional. The first step of the exceptional is mastery, self-mastery. And he goes, at your level of operation, it's about reading and self-education. You then practice and put into operation all those things you just learned, because you have to embody it and make it yours. And then when you're done doing it, you come back, you after action yourself, you reflect, you ask yourself what I could have done better. You read more, and then you go do it again. It's about getting the repetitions in, and self-education and self-mastery with anything you can read in any of your gaps, because we all have blind spots. So part of the self-reflection is understanding, defining where your blind spots are, because the truly exceptional people in life are the ones that are very clear on what their blind spots are. They take a lot of action, and they do a lot of work in those blind spots. So their blind spots actually become their greatest strengths throughout their life.
You, in one of our previous discussions, one of the statements that you said, I've actually got and stuck up on a Post-it note, talking about reading and about how broad your reading list is. And whilst I had considered myself quite broadly read until our discussions, I've realized how important and how powerful that statement was. Is just, we don't just read for ourselves, we read to better understand others. And so whether it be something from their values, their different walk of life as well, the more we can immerse ourselves are going to help us better understand others, that focus on being other people centric. So it's one of the few sticky notes that I've got stuck here above this monitor. The other point you mentioned there is about when you progress then through to the FBI, and one of the elements you do there is obviously with the spy recruiting as well, and obviously with this podcast being focused on people feeling safe and well, there's what I probably coin second tier safety, and I think you've probably got some very unique experience about that with some of the people you would need to be dealing with and approaching. It's not just about them placing their trust and safety in you, they're placing their family's trust and safety in you. So not only are you having to make them feel safe, you would have to, I'd imagine, give them some skills and tools and things to be able to pass on for their family feeling that way. So could you shed some light on part of that process about how building trust and safety there, but also empowering them a little because they had to have their families feeling safe as well?
Yeah, it was definitely generational safety, because when someone is going to literally put their lives on the line to cooperate with the United States government, it's not just, like you said, it's not just their lives, it's their families' lives, it's their parents and relatives' lives back from wherever they are, and generations forward lives as well. It literally is impacting an entire family tree of individuals because of the thought of being considered a traitor, the thought of what it could do to entire lines. So yeah, that's deep. It is very, very deep. And I always say you don't recruit anyone. We didn't recruit spies. We identified individuals. My entire job was to identify individuals in a very limited base of potential clients, as I like to say, because it was the toughest sales job in the world. You're selling a concept of patriotism to individuals that don't want to buy your concept of patriotism. Mm-hmm. And so you can't force anyone to buy anything. And anyone listening knows that, when you sell something, you're never selling the actual product or service. You're selling yourself. And this was the ultimate form of selling yourself. So first you had to identify individuals that had pain points that aligned with the resources that I had. I had resources. I could settle people in the United States. I could settle them in other Five Eye countries like Australia or the UK or Canada or New Zealand or any other numerous countries, but generally the United States. And so that's a resource I have in exchange for a pain point or gap I had of how are they a threat to national security of the United States and our NATO allies. Now, these individuals, I never met one. I was fortunate enough to be part of a decent number of recruitment operations, and I never met one of them that just did it on a whim. These were plans that were put in place in the back of their head for many, many years, and they were testing waters. They're setting up gaps in their life. They're literally preparing the way to see if they could find an individual that might be able to give them that opportunity. Because just because someone is looking for a solution to a pain point in life doesn't mean they're ever going to take the step to solve that pain point, because there's many individuals out there that would love to solve all the problems of the world, but they don't trust the person that they're going to do it with. And so my job was, one, to identify individuals. The second was to let them know that I have resources that can solve those problems and challenges in their lives. And the most important was I was the person that could keep them and their legacy safe. And that is the toughest challenge in the world.
Yeah, I mean, keeping not just them, their legacy safe. And that's the point I suppose I was trying to mention earlier, is that it wasn't just about, I'm not saying selling the sizzle to them with the sausages with what you have, but it's also about they needed to obviously be passing on, communicating with their family. And so that element of trust, that alignment, that affinity that you have with them had to have been incredibly strong in some very difficult circumstances, for sure. Yeah, and from that perspective, I mean, because everybody starts at different points, at different levels of initial trust as well. I've had previous colleagues that when they talk about trust, their version is as simple as, well, I've got 3 levels. I trust you with my money, my wife, or my life, or the combination of all those. But I mean, trust is obviously like at many, many levels. And the thing I think that's been really powerful about some of the things you've said already is that you started from being somebody that, from that self-resilient, self-reliant, nobody's going to save you. You need to do this yourself. And then over that time, after that moment, you've then set that path and progressed to, as I said, being one of the most other people-centered person that I've ever met. I mean, one of the parts that I actually, when I was running through, wanted to mention in the introduction that I didn't put in, and it's probably the most important, is that you're also an incredibly proud father and husband. And one of the parts I love, I smile when I'm listening to your audiobooks and reading your books, is how you talk about how your wife is such an other person, validating like your type person as well, and those values. I'd like to talk about that for a bit, just about the importance, I suppose, from the value-based approach that you need to take with building trust, because this isn't manipulation or other parts as well. It's about having that true other people-centered approach. So, yeah, I'd like to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, the true other people-centered approach, 100%. What I found through the trial and error of life is that the greatest things that reward me is being of service. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more I give, the better I feel. And that's the motivation. The value, it's really interesting. Values are challenging because that shifts from person to person, from culture to culture. And I've interacted with a lot of different cultures and still do. And you can't judge the values of someone else if you want to build trust and if you want to make people feel safe. So the thing I'm always going for, my underlying value of everything, and my wife and I were just talking about this today and yesterday, is a good, healthy relationship. I don't do drama in my life. And the easiest way to not do drama is to let go. Don't keep a score. Great leaders don't keep a score. I'm never offended by the way someone communicates with me. I always own the fact that maybe I said or presented something in a certain way that might have triggered a trauma event in their life or made them feel insecure in some way. So they felt a need to lash out at me. I can't remember the last time this actually happened. But those are the ways, those are my values. My value is really simple. Be of service. It is that simple, and don't do unhealthy relationships. And if someone's at a point in their life that they're having unhealthy behaviors, here's the other really key thing is you can't necessarily reach down and save them if they don't want to be saved yet, or you can't move them further on their path if they don't want to be moved yet. It's understanding, deep understanding and empathy for where someone's currently at, and being very respectful of what they're looking for at the tempo that they're looking for it and when they want it. The most important thing in the world is really understanding the tempo of other people and never trying to get them to go beyond that tempo. I just had someone on my show the other day. He really had a great analogy of the 4% rule. And that is, you don't want to go from 0 to 100 with someone. 4%. If you can help someone get to 4%, if they're willing, that's that little nudge up that'll start that progress a little bit faster than they might otherwise do. But my value is really simple: good, healthy, strong relationships and creating a great conversation and dialogue and being of service.
I think the other parts of that you do incredibly well is, in the discussions that we've had as well, and is about holding space for other people. It's about, even if they are in a position that they're at that stage in their life that they're wanting to progress, improve as well, it's also giving them some support and tools, but it's their journey, it's their light. And that's something I know that we've spoken about, your focus on helping people shine in their true light, and that non-judgmental curiosity to assist people whilst they walk their own path and hold their own space, I think is another part that's incredibly important as well.
I love it. It's an analogy my son and I came up with a couple days ago, and I'll see if I can capture it well for you in the audience. So say everyone thinks, I love using cars in this analogy, race cars or whatever kind of cars. And everyone pretty much thinks they're driving a fast Lamborghini. But in reality, we're all driving different vehicles.
Yeah.
And so say I'm driving in a Lamborghini and I'm going 100 miles an hour, and I look around me and I notice that the people around me are generally driving Priuses going 25 miles an hour. But they think they're going 100. And all of a sudden they see you zooming by at 100 miles an hour. Last thing they need is for you to slow down, scoff at them, and then hit on the accelerator and go by.
Sure.
The other thing they don't need is for you to stop, pull up alongside of them, grab on and say, hey, you're going too slow. Come up with me and go 100 miles an hour from your 25. It's going to freak them out.
Yep.
It's great leaders will hop out of their Lamborghini, jump in another Prius, and ride alongside of them and have a great dialogue and conversation and ask them where they are in their journey. Are they looking to go a little faster or not? and it's okay either way, but they're going to ride alongside with them. And then they're going to see someone else maybe going about 35 or 40. Maybe they'll hop in another car and ride along with them. And yeah, can they drive a Lamborghini all the time? Sure. But do you need to? And so it's like you said, meeting people where they are. Now, here's the fun part. The great inspiration and fun is when you hop into someone's car and they're driving that Prius and they say, listen, I saved up a lot of money and I'm about to buy a Lamborghini. The problem is I don't know how to drive it. It's got all this stuff under the hood. It's got all these whiz-bang gadgets, and I'm hoping, might you be willing to help me drive this Lamborghini? And those are the ones you're like, wow, eyes are wide open. Skill sets are there. The humility is there that I'm not going to try to go from 25 to 100. I'm going to start trying to nudge this up a little bit to see what's under the hood. And that's when you have the teacher, mentor, and guide to say, hey, let's see what we can do with what you got. And here's the other thing too. If someone doesn't have the Lamborghini money, but they want to just stay where they are, they love being at 25, and say, you know what can we do with your Prius to really soup that thing up, to make you comfortable in it, to make you effective in it, so you can lane change whenever you want and not hit anything along the way. So it's really understanding where you are, have a great humility about it, let go of it, and meet people where they are and help them with what they want help with. And only if they offer it, only if they want it on their timetable, on their schedule, at their tempo.
And the important parts of that as well is the suspending, not projecting yourself onto the conversation. Understanding where they are and accepting that timeline. That can be a part, especially for successful leaders. Sometimes I know that I've had previously times where I see potential in somebody, and I think, you can get to here. You just need to do this, 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 and this. And come on, I'll do this with you. I'm right beside you. Let's do this. And sometimes people are just not wanting to progress that. Just they're comfortable where they are. That staged approach, and that can be a difficult thing for leaders as well. Is just understanding to be able to let go and let people do things on their own timeline. Just because you see that potential and that opportunity doesn't mean that it's right for them at that moment.
Just because they saved the money for the Lamborghini doesn't mean they want to buy that Lamborghini. They might want to put a little more money into that Prius first.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about obviously leadership with this last couple of it now, and I think another element for us to expand on here is about the skills that we've said here about that building trust, people feeling safe and comfortable. This is across the gamut of all interactions, personal interactions and relationships that we have there, and also in the work environment from a leadership point of view, that stem for people feeling safe through trust and dependable behavior as well. So I'd love to get your thoughts about the importance of just dependability and where that sits in and around trust and feeling safe.
Sure. That aligns well with my last book, Sizing People Up, which is trust. There's two elements of trust to me. One is the dependability / predictability, because one thing that people want to do to feel safe is be able to predict the behavior of those people around them. And so when we can actually reasonably assess what people are doing around us and predict that behavior, it makes us feel safe. And doesn't mean just because you trust someone doesn't mean you're going to like someone. It just means you're going to be able to understand them and predict what they're going to do, so you can manage your expectations. Because again, as I said a little bit earlier, the most important thing for me is a healthy relationship. And I never, ever want to damage a healthy relationship or cause any ill harm to it. And so it's all about understanding exactly where someone's at, understanding what I can reasonably expect from this relationship, and how, most importantly, what they see the relationship as, so I don't mismanage that. And again, then it's meeting people where they are. So reasonably predicting what someone's going to do helps me feel safe and helps others feel safe when you are predictable as also.
So from a leader, obviously, especially if you've got some highly active teams as well, helping share some insight and to give that dependability as well, with people need to understand your values approach, so they know for that consistency and dependability. So I suppose the other parties as a leader, vulnerability would be very important as well in sharing that of yourself. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're reading my mind, as you know. You're doing a great job, and that is, one of the most important things an individual can do to be an inspiring leader, to forge that way forward for others. Is it's a balance. Everything in life to me is a balance of the dichotomies. And this dichotomy is one of the most important ones to have, and that's confidence. So people have confidence in you actually know what you're doing to get the job done and to lead us forward to whatever challenge you're facing, but also humility so that they know that you're not trying to blow smoke, into the nether reaches of the world. And so the best way to really demonstrate that, and this is really hard for people that are insecure. People that are secure in themselves have no problem in this, and that is transparency and vulnerability. They're my go-tos for everyone. When in doubt, if I don't know how to handle a situation, I'm going to be transparent. When in doubt, I'm going to tell you exactly what my issues and challenges and flaws are, because if I tell you that, then I'm willing to tell you everything. Because when you're being transparent and you're being vulnerable, what you're doing is you're empowering the other person with knowledge for their decision-making process. When you empower people with knowledge, remember the 4 things for making people feel safe and having great communications. The last one is empowerment with choice. So by being transparent, being vulnerable, and being honest, I'm allowing people to make great, healthy decisions for them, makes them feel very safe. Now, when I balance that dichotomy with great competence, because I know what I'm doing, who wouldn't want to follow that? Who wouldn't want to be part of that? Because that makes me feel safe. Safe that I know that this person is going to be able to move the needle forward, to move us down the line, to overcome any challenge and obstacle. At the same time, they're empowering me with knowledge about how to do it for myself and how to be part of this team because they're transparent. So I'm the spy recruiting guy that will tell you I do all I can to never lie, deceive, deception, manipulation, all those. I don't even like the word influence, because that still rings to me like it's about me. I'm always about inspiring someone for action, because inspiration has to come from within, never convincing someone to do something, because convincing is about what I want you to do. Convincing is about me, inspiration is about you. So I'm always thinking in terms of when I'm strategizing a dialogue, when I'm strategizing engagement, when I'm strategizing a leadership challenge, I'm thinking to myself, how can I inspire someone to do X, Y, and Z? Because now that's got to be aligned with their priorities, their goals, their challenges, and pain points.
You've tied some incredibly powerful principles there, like over our discussion, and probably tying this back to one of the earlier points is, if as a leader you've got that transparency and vulnerability, and tying to one of your earlier points, which I think is incredibly important, about being able to see the world through somebody else's optic, it really ties into what you'd said before, the importance of reflective practice. Sometimes we're so stuck in the thick of thin things and with what's occurring that as a leader, it's important for us to actually really stop and truly think from those people that we are leading, what are things like from their perspective, and not just on that decision, on the entire relationship, the interaction. You mentioned before about reflective practice and reflecting back on conversations. There would be some really important takeaways from the people that listen to this to the podcast as well, to get some tips and tools like around from reflective practice as well. Some people go from the journaling path, or if it's just for deep thought, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
There's a lot of different things that help that process. One is always asking yourself after every encounter you have with someone, how did I think that went? How could I have done things better? And what was their reaction to me? So that's the most basic level. So if you notice someone having a slightest bit of discomfort when engaging you, and you're a nonverbal expert, is everyone, because everyone knows what normal looks like for the people in their life, and they can always tell when someone's having a bad day. If you did something to cause someone to have a bad day around you with the nonverbals, lip compression, eyebrow compression, basically anything that's demonstrating a little bit of stress, ask yourself, what did I do to cause that? And what could I do differently to never do that again? So that's the reflective part. The most important place that you want to try to get to, at least where I'm at today, to really bring this to the next level, is being present. I can't overemphasize this enough. It's when you start moving on from painting by number, by memorizing what you're doing. Because remember, every time you're thinking of what you're going to do to forge trust, what you're going to do to build rapport, that's one less instant and microsecond in the cosmos of not focusing on the other person. Yeah. And the most important thing, even, so think about, let's go to the spy recruiting thing. When you're recruiting a spy and their entire legacy and their entire lifespan and their family's lifespan before and after you is in your hands, you are constantly reading and watching every moment to provide them psychological comfort and feeling safe. And in order to do that, you must be present. And here is a great way to think of it. Be curious, deeply curious, without an agenda. Because if you have an agenda, that's something that's in your head that you're going to be thinking of, even if it's in the back of your head. So in order to be truly present, you have to let go of agenda and be there, be them. And you'll know you hit this point and we've all maybe had these moments in life when you're driving to work and all of a sudden you're there and you don't remember because you're so deep in thought, because you're so transfixed, or any other time in our lives. And that, when you're focused on someone like that, where you no longer know what time it is, you no longer know anything, and all you're doing is hearing their words, and you're having curiosity about their words and everything about them, that's when you're in flow state and you are present. That's what the ultimate goal is, because only in that moment can you really understand, am I making them feel safe in this moment?
As a leader, that can be sometimes difficult because, traditional management and leadership training is about be well prepared, be documented. And I know that's something I'm smiling because I'm thinking about some of our past discussions where I'm somebody that would have everything preset with an agenda to the minute, to the topic, to the desired outcome, and let's just talk deviations. It's something as well, some element of self-confidence needs to become it's a part of being other people centric. You also need to have some confidence in your own abilities and ability to pick up and work through or navigate the nuances of some of those communications. And I think that's a really important point that you mentioned, is that it's so important for being present, like in the moment, and not being transactional with some of the interactions that we can have as a leader. But you're going to be able to best do that by being truly present in the moment, not going back and just checking to what was question 3.4 and
right.
What's next page of the agenda. So for the leaders out there that I suppose are trying to gain more momentum, what's some of one of the points that you'd say about just for how to let go from that normal pre-structure like agenda, because it sometimes is not natural. It wasn't a natural thing for me as I've progressed and really understood the benefit for this. This is the first time I've had a meeting, like an interaction with any podcast. I literally had 3 points down and that was it. That's very much not my normal style and approach, but this has also been probably one of the most relaxed I've had with some of these type of interactions. So I'd love to get some points from you just about that confidence, or the other reasons why it's so what you're going to miss if you're not 100% like in the moment. So any more you could share on that would be wonderful.
This is the greatest dichotomy. And it's a dichotomy in which we were just talking about: competence and humility. Humility puts you present in the moment. Confidence is the prep work you did to get to that moment. So because it sounds like Robin in the Zen art of communication means you don't do any work. No. In order to be present and be productive, you have to have done a lot of work. You have to be a master. And there's that competence. You have to be a master of your content. You have to be a master of the knowledge. You have to do the deep work to understand the challenge, understand the pain point, understand the situation. Have your agenda that you've scripted out. Understand the goals, the objectives, the priorities, all those things that leaders do. That's the work that you are doing, whether you're working on a team or all these things. But now when you're engaging that person, that individual, here's where the artist comes in. Now you put all that aside, because here's the other thing too. Once you've identified these things and you're the master of your content, are you really going to forget it? No, you won't. No one ever does. I call it the new car effect. I mean, the day you bought your brand new car or used car, whatever it is, you all of a sudden start seeing that same make and model everywhere because it has meaning and value, because it had labels and meanings to you. And so same thing with all the work you do. You do that pre-work. And now when you're engaged in the moment, you let go of all of it. No agenda, no anything, because I need to be able to hear and listen and be present to every single word you're saying. And now when I'm hearing your every single word, all of a sudden one's going to come out of your mouth and also, oh, I see a pop in my back of my brain. Hey, here's where we might be able to align this. And we ask a question because we're curious about the thing you said, because our brain's automatically locking on. Hey, we might be able to make a connection here. I didn't have an agenda for it because I'm focused on you. But the artist, the brain starts making those connections. And that's what we're doing. So these are things that we're going from 0 to 100 because a lot of people, you need to do the paint by number first. You have to do each step along the way. You have to learn what rapport is. You have to practice rapport. You have to learn what building trust is from rapport. And you have to do that. Negotiation skills, all these things come in there. But remember, the purpose of each one of these things you're doing and these steps you're taking along the way is become an artist. And the artist is present that can actually put all these things together without even thought, because it just becomes a natural part of being because you have the reps in.
So do the hard work, get to that confidence and competence, but then with the actual interactions, be present, back yourself. The fact that the most important thing here is being completely present in the moment to pick up that one word, that one change in the non-verbals that, oh, this is something that's incredibly important for that person. And, we've mentioned as well that it's important to understand that the message we're communicating to people is I truly value what's of importance to you with this dynamic. I mean, a lot of leaders and managers will sometimes jump to straight accountability. We want to get better performance with their business. Here's a KPI, or SLA framework. And I think they miss two really important parts, which is that inclusion and alignment piece beforehand. And what you're saying here about being truly transparent, vulnerable, bringing the team along with that journey, but also understanding it completely from their perspective. That's how, as any organization, regardless of size, you're going to get true alignment and working towards your full potential, because everybody really is rowing that boat in the same direction, because we've got that understanding as to what everybody else, as to what each person's expectations are as well. But
you gave a great example of this at the very beginning of the podcast. You came in, like you said, with like 3 things. You did research. We've talked so many times, Scott. And so you knew the content well. You knew where you wanted to go. No agenda. You then asked me the spark to my backstory, my origin story. And you heard something that, because you were listening and present, you weren't focused on where you wanted to go. You heard astronaut. It spiked the curiosity in the word I said, and you asked about that. You're curious about that. We delved down that and saw how it came back center.
Yep.
And it came back center not because you had an agenda, because you knew where you wanted to go. So you did exactly that. You were present without constraint, and still came back to where you wanted to go, and it expanded a knowledge base of a background of someone that you're engaging with. So now that if anything pops up, well, this guy that is actually all about trust and is all about relationship building, he actually has some technical skills because he can do the X, Y, and Z. And I had no idea before, because you were present and listening.
It's been really rewarding for me to be able to do this podcast with you, Robin. So I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunity, and I could not have thought of a more suitable person to kick off a podcast with me about having people feel safe during our time together. Before even meeting you, from what I had read and listened to, and that as well, and then for some of the sessions that we've had now, I've grown as a person a lot, and I'm truly hoping that through this podcast and from people like yourself that are able to help share some more skills and knowledge on having people feel safe and well, just how important that is at every element. I mean, we'll be covering off some physical safety, circumstances in and around family violence, or if you're that person in the work environment, and the same fundamental principles that you've mentioned today, tied with the fact that we all have a right to feel safe, whether it's your work environment, your home environment, and these skills are translatable to every type of interaction dynamic we have. That family dynamic as well. Reflect on the interactions that you're having with your family, and is just as important, if not more important, than what you're having from the work environment. It's the same process, that transparency, that vulnerability, that all carries through. So I'm very grateful for the knowledge you shared with us today, Robin.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. And for everyone listening, I have one more ask. Scott puts a lot into this. It's a fantastic resource for you in your life and everyone you know. So in order to get this content out to others, the most important thing right now, click like, leave a review, and share it with at least one person today, because it's so worth everything he's doing and everything he's going to be providing for you, because being of service to others, there is no greater calling and no greater reward. So Scott, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks very much, Robin. And for anybody obviously wanting some more information about Robin, about with the Forged by Trust podcast as well, also about for his books, go to peopleformula.com. It's got all the information in there. There's also some information about with Robin, what Robin does from a coaching point of view, which I can tell you is incredibly valuable and impactful at every level. So once again, thanks very much, Robin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Congrats.
Stopped and done.